My name is Peter Ahlman, and I'm a disciple of Jesus. Today I'm born again, and I will tell you my story now. I was born in 1970, and my parents were hippies, and kind of in the flower power movement there. I had one older brother, and the way we grew up was we had drugs around us, and it was a lot of like this what came with the flower power movement about free sex, and yes, we had no boundaries as kids when we grew up. My father I didn't see so much. He was a violent man. He was beating up my mother, and I remember that I was very afraid of him. He went to prison regularly, so we didn't see him so much. And so basically the main responsibility for our childhood was my mother. As a small kid, I was always longing to have a father, somebody that loved me, I could trust. And I remember my friends in school and so on, that they had these secure families, you know, with mother and father and grandparents, and I didn't have that. So I always felt a lack, something was missing inside of me. My life as a very young boy started as I was searching for something. I've always been a searcher and an adventurer, and also in the way we grew up, you know, there was no boundaries. So my parents were stealing and so on. So we didn't have these strong rules how to live. Me and my brother, when I was 4 years old, he was 5. Actually, we did our first burglary. We broke in a basement, actually. In a house. We lived in a big house with many different apartments. And I remember when we came up with the bags to our mother, and how she said, "No, not where we live." So it's kind of a different way for a kid to grow up. And I remember one time I was about 6 years old, and I was in a room, and my mother was there and other people, her friends, and they pour up a cup with some kind of drink inside, and they told me, "This is poison, Peter, and when you drink this, you will die." That broke my heart, totally. And I felt this fear of death, but also this lack of trust for grown-ups, and a lot of pain inside of me started to grow up there. And I was starting to find ways to kill that pain, and I started to plan my own death, actually. I failed one time to kill myself when I was a very young child. And it was a search. I started to spend time with older people, and they were drinking alcohol and doing drugs and so on. So when I was 9 years old, I actually started to get drunk for the first time. And that continued during the years, to have this searching, these kicks in life, to feel satisfaction. And also I remember also how I could feel this satisfaction by taking drugs or drinking something. Me and my brother were fighting very much when we grew up. And he was an older brother, usually he won, so I was in hospital pretty many times. Remember that I was watching these kung fu movies, and I was inspired by Bruce Lee, and I want to learn how to fight. How can I beat up my brother? How can I protect my mother from my father when he comes and beat her up? And so on. So that actually led me to start to train martial arts. When I was around 12, 13 years old, my mother decided to shape up, actually. But then both me and my brother were actually we were full-time criminals. We were formed to be addicts, to be criminals, and it was very hard for us to change. And my girlfriend's father, he was also like a heavy criminal. He was doing a lot of like heavy crimes, and so since I was a teenager, he took me under his wings, kind of on and off, and actually started to raise me in many ways in this way. And I kind of find a father I never had. I started to join him also when he had this going to gather money. I became like a kind of a torpedo with him, went out to apartments, beating up people. And I saw stuff that was very terrible to see. When I was about 23 years old, actually, he got shot in a drug fight and he died. And I remember that also changed me inside, because I realized that this is the way I was living was not a good life. It's just, and this I started to realize also soon is my turn. My friends and people you have in that world, you start to see them die from overdoses and violence and different things, accidents and so on, that's related to drugs, of course. So I really wanted to stop doing this kind of lifestyle. I don't want to live that life anymore. I tried so many things. I tried to move from places. I tried to go to rehabs. I was searching in different religions actually. I remember Jehovah's Witness came to me and spoke, and I was thinking maybe that's for me, but it didn't work. I was looking at Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism. Nothing worked. I started to do more and more heavy drugs. I started to become mentally ill also, very paranoid, and because of all the drugs I was doing. I became very suicidal. I started to hate my life, but when I took the drugs, I felt like whole. So my life just became a mess. I started to get these spasms in my head when you're twitching and so on of amphetamines, and so it was very visible also that I was a drug addict. I was very, very skinny. Of course, I ended up in prison also. The first time was because I ran away from military service actually. So I got 2 weeks in prison. I was very humiliating because they called me the deserter. So it was, but that was the first one, and then actually I got in prison another time also for 1 year for just stupid stuff, violence and different things, to beating up some police officers and other things. So I went to prison, and it was terrible. Most of my friends from the past were gone, died, ODs, and you don't have friends anymore. You're just walking around, and you don't know who to trust or where to live or why I'm living. Or the only thing that kept me alive was the drugs. Something was missing inside of me. I was trying to find it all the time, to feel this peace inside of me, to be satisfied with life. But it was gone. It was empty space, and guilt, shame. It was bad. It was very bad. I was a homeless man, thrown in by the social authorities to a shelter some nights. I was not welcome anywhere. I started to lose teeth. I looked like a wretch. People are looking at me in the streets, and I was so paranoid. I remember one time I was in a bush for 2 days, paranoid, just waiting for something to escape or run away from something. I beat up people without the reason, just because I thought they were following me, or because I started to see and hear voices. And in the end of the 90s or the beginning of 2000, I was treated by one of the foremost specialists in psychiatry in Sweden actually. I was messed up, but I think he thought I was an interesting case. So he gave me medications, of course, and puts different diagnoses on me. So in one way, when I started to get diagnosis, I felt like confident in that, because then I knew, wow, that's the reason I'm so weird. I got a room in a shelter one night, and in that shelter was a man. His name is Ahlman. He was preaching the gospel. He was a believer of Jesus Christ. I heard about him, but for me it was more like those guys that believe in Christ. There was something must be wrong there. How can you believe in that kind of fairy tales? But one night it was my turn, and I remember when he was knocking at my door. I was very paranoid. I remember I was reacting, and who's there? Something's okay. But then I opened the door, and this man was standing outside the door and said, "God told me to pray for you, Peter." And I was like, really? So something was like, I haven't heard that this way before. And I thought, yeah, you can do that, because I needed something. But then he told me that God told me to go out walking with you in a park. And I said, yes, let's take a walk. And I remember how I started to talk with this man, and I was telling my story, how I grew up, and I was a hurt person, and how I hated my parents. I hated the people that hurt me, and I hated myself. And I was complaining. I was very angry and agitated about the world and everything. And he was listening to me. But after a while he said, "Peter, I heard your story now, but I want to tell you something." And he told me that the problem was sin, that I needed Jesus Christ in my life. That's the only way for everybody in this world. And I felt something was hit me in the heart. I knew something's here. And then he started telling me his story, how he got saved, and it was just an amazing story how he met the Lord. And I was very good at detecting liars, and I could see this man was not lying. Either he was totally insane, or it was truth. And I could see this man he had it, he found it, he had the peace. He had these things I've been looking for my whole life. And I remember I was listening to his story, and I felt some kind of hope was stirring up in me. And then he said, "Now I'm going to pray for you, Peter." And when he laid hands on me, something just came over me. A huge peace just came over my body. And I remember how I broke down in tears, started crying. And I haven't done that for a long time. That part of me was so dead somehow. The feelings, all the tears, all the my heart was like stone. But that melted somehow inside of me, and he prayed for me. He did not lead me to Christ that night, but I realized then what that man has, I need. I'm dying. I realized I will die. So that led me into a pursuit of Christ. And eventually I came to a Lutheran church, actually, in a city called Malmö in Sweden. And they welcomed me with love, and they gave me a hug. And they even put me, I was not a believer, as an usher in the church. I was a thief, and suddenly I'm going to collect money for the church. But I did not become a believer because I wanted to be real. I wanted to believe in Jesus Christ, but I did not understand how. Today I know it's a decision that you trust Him. But I went to an older man in the church and I told him, I want to become like you. I want to become a believer. What can I do? And he said to me, Peter, there's a promise in the Bible, and it says, those that knock on His door, it shall be open for. And I took that like a child, literally, and I went out. That church was a big steel gate. And I went out and I knocked on that gate. And I just told God, let me in. And then something inside me, I realized what the problem was. I was terrified because I realized that I had so much guilt, I had so much shame, I had so much failure. I've done things I'm not proud about at all. I need to be forgiven. But I really started to believe that God is real. He exists, but when I meet Him, I will die. I cannot be close to Him because I'm so dirty. But I realized what was wrong. I needed to be forgiven. But I was terrified. I was terrified if I meet God, He would kill me instantly. I would be perishing. But I took a decision. I want to go home, lay down in my bed in my room, and there was a collective with other people, and I will invite Him. I will tell Him, come now. I was sick and tired of waiting. So I went back home to my bed and I told God, God, come. Boom! Something came to my head, flushed through my body. It was just the most beautiful, amazing feeling I felt in my whole life. I felt like better than drugs 10 times over. And I just stood up and I felt I was shining my whole body, and I screamed out, I'm saved! And I felt the forgiveness of sin. I felt forgiven. It was an amazing feeling. And I remember I ran out of that collective, and people of course thought I lost my mind. I was forgiven, and this huge burden that had been on me since a kid just was gone. I felt the missing puzzle piece inside my body just came to place. Boom. Suddenly I had this amphetamine spasms also, like doing this twitching because I was doing drugs. It just stopped like that. It was gone. It said, in this blinking moment, I felt renewed in my body. I felt I could breathe. I felt I was shining, and I was forgiven. And I realized in that point that this is the key for everybody. You need to come to Jesus Christ and give your life as a surrender. And you just need to invite Him to come, and He will come and He will forgive you, and He will renew your mind. He will set you free. But it needs to come from your heart, because God is waiting for this. And that led me into a new life, an amazing life. I remember how it began, how I, from not even be able to read a book in a good way, I could never focus on things more than a few seconds. And I was ADHD times 10. Suddenly I could lay down for hours and read the Bible, and it was just amazing how I found my place in life, and how things are supposed to be. For the first time in my life, I came home and I met my true Father. I actually got baptized in water, fully immersed on my own faith, and that also changed a lot of things in my life. Felt I was set free from a lot of things. I was living in sin I couldn't break with. I was filled with the Holy Spirit. I started speaking new tongues, but that changed my life. I got a new prayer language. I felt empowered by the Holy Spirit from inside, and I met my wife Camilla, and we got married, and yes, a new life began. But then I came to a point also eventually when I felt like there must be more, because we didn't make disciples in the way I could see in the Bible. But then I came to Denmark. I got trained and for a few days, and I came back to Sweden, and we started to go out and make disciples, do something we call a kickstarting people. We started to build up teams. We started to travel around, and here I am today in an amazing way, making disciples all around the world, planting churches, house churches, building networks, casting out demons, baptizing people, healing the sick, and teaching others all around the world to do the same, all around the world. full time for the Lord. I was very violent in my old life, and this was also something I felt changing. The love for people came, because I was a boxer, I was beating up people, I always wanted revenge, I felt this hate, and even though I was terrified, I always the way of solving conflict was to punch them on the nose or something. But today I'm giving the devil a bloody nose instead, and that's amazing to see this. A few years after we came to Uppsala, where we live now, when I was going to Bible school in the end there, I was actually giving an offer from a media company that was working with the highest politicians in every city in Sweden to make media products for them and so on. And they offered me a work there, and I took it, and that actually changed my life in many, many ways. I could settle up with debts I had in my old life. And I remember also how when they gave me a brand new Mercedes, I was working in this company, and they gave me a high salary. They gave me free telephone, free gym card. We went for a kickoff 2 times a year to Miami. I came into this a totally new level of lifestyle, and that I never dreamt about ever, because I was like a bum, homeless, and suddenly I was up there, sitting there in a suit, speaking with the highest politicians in different cities in Sweden, just from the bottom up to the top. And this is the only one that can get glory from this is God. It's only God that can, because He took something was nothing up there. And I was sitting in these meetings sometimes, I was thinking, how is this possible? Because they had no idea. People that meet me today, they have no idea where I come from. I came from nothing. I came from a drug addict family. I had no educations. I became a homeless guy. I was in the bottom of society. I was nothing. So it took me up to the top. But then when I was there for a while, God gave me a choice to serve Him full time. On this journey, I've seen a lot of miracles, and you can see that also on our YouTube channel, for example. We have recorded more than 4,000 people live in different things they get healed from. But I think the greatest miracle is when you see somebody come to Christ. And I remember when the day the Lord told me to go to my father and give him the gospel about 3.5 years ago, and how I did that in the time of God. And my father broke down in tears, gave his life to Jesus Christ, repented, asked me, Peter, what's going to happen to me now? And I told him, now you're going to get baptized. 30 minutes later, I baptized my own father to Jesus Christ. That's a miracle. I remember when my mother came to Christ, and the Lord told me, let your wife Camilla speak to your mother now. And she did that, and the day after, my mother has come to Christ, and I baptized my own mother also. I've seen people with broken legs get healed, arms, heads, people have tumors that have been gone suddenly, and a lot of things that have been miraculous in an amazing way. It's beautiful to see this, and how the rumor spreads in families about this, households coming to Christ in an amazing journey. But still, what amazed me the most is when somebody comes to Christ. When you live this life as a disciple, and slowly your heart changes, and you see that eternity is what's most important. That's what really matters in long term. Today I have friends all around the world, in so many countries. I'm almost never in Sweden. I travel around just making disciples, and we teach them to do the same. And we have this close fellowship with people, and the love in the heart. And it's just so beautiful to see how great God is. He's a mighty God, and He loves us so much. My life is a miracle. The government spent a lot of money on my life to rehab me. Nothing worked. I tried everything. It didn't work. But when I came to Jesus Christ, to God, the only living God, I was set free. My life is a miracle. That's a living proof for you as atheists out there that actually God is real. There's something in our DNA as people, and we know that there's something more. We are supposed to have fellowship with God, walk with God, be friends with God, be united with God. Everybody's looking for something. They try through sex, drugs, rock and roll, buy a new car, house, change wife. Look around you. It doesn't matter if it's a multimillionaire or it's a homeless person. Everybody's looking for the missing puzzle piece. God lives inside of me. The creator of the universe. He made it all. He decided to make me His temple. He wants to live there. He wants to dwell among us. He wants to walk with us. He wants to walk with you. He's waiting for you to take these steps. I plead to you, please come. Don't wait. You can be too late tomorrow or in a few minutes. If you die without Christ, you will be lost forever. Please come to Christ. Please, I live for this today, to give the gospel to people. preach to them. This is important. You need to do this. It's for you. I don't care if you're a Buddhist, if you're a drug addict. Christ is for all nations, all people, and there's only one way to heaven. And you just need to come to that point where you just surrender and you give everything to Him. Jesus told us to go out and make disciples of all nations. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're called to be a follower of Jesus Christ. When you find that life, things change. The result is that people are looking into life and they recognize Christ in you. And your life become a testimony, an attraction. They see you coming with this beautiful pearl. You found a treasure in the field and you sold a treasure to buy this pearl. You come, it's shining, and people see that in your eyes and they want to have it. To be continued.